we discovered that every hotel used the same encryption key. So if you went and stayed at a Marriott and then you went to a different hotel that used the same locks, like a Hyatt, they were both using the same encryption key. And so each hotel could have compromised all the other hotels because of that. So now they use a different encryption key for each hotel so that you can't steal the key and go to other hotels.
Hey there, points people. You just heard a clip from Ian Carroll, founder of Seats.Aero. If you've watched pretty much any of my YouTube videos, you've probably seen me use Seats.Aero in the tutorials. And today, we're going behind the scenes. In this episode, expect to hear about Ian's background as a cybersecurity expert, how Ian has earned millions of miles through airline bug bounty programs, how Ian and his friends broke the code for TSA, and every digital hotel lock in the world, and so much more. And if you are in the market for a new card to earn points so that you can travel like Ian, check out geobreezetravel.com/cards. And if you're not sure what card is right for you, I offer free credit card consultations at geobreezetravel.com/consultations. We will send you personalized recommendations based on your particular travel goals, budget, and lifestyle. And now, on with the show. Hey, Ian. Welcome to the GeoBreeze Travel Podcast.
Hey, Julia, how's it going?
It's going well. I've been trying to get you onto this show for like the better part of a year, so I'm so excited that we finally get to record this episode. And I know that for people who watch my YouTube videos pretty regularly, no stranger to Seats.Aero. We use it all the time. It's probably one of my most used tools for finding award space. But let's kind of go backwards in time a little bit. Before Seats.Aero, tell us about you and your background and how did you get into the world of points and miles?
Yeah, glad to hear they use it a lot. Yeah, so my background is really actually in cybersecurity. So I was a security engineer at a few tech companies before I started Seats.Aero. And I was just living in San Francisco, and it was really hard to figure out where can I go with my points and miles if I had flexible PTO and I lived in San Francisco. We had a lot of possible direct international flights, and I wanted to see, hey, where can I use like these life miles to go instead of searching day by day, like one specific destination. And so that was really the inspiration for Seats.Aero. And I just started as a side project in my free time until we actually ended up having a lot of users.
And I know that before Seats.Aero was a thing, you earned a lot of points in a pretty non-conventional way, which are through bug bounties. So for everybody who's not familiar with bug bounties at all, explain what those are and some of the more interesting ones you found and how did you earn points through those programs?
Yeah, for sure. So bug bounties are really just a way to get paid for finding kind of cybersecurity issues in companies. So for example, like if you have an iPhone and you find like a security issue in Apple will pay you money and say like, hey, thanks for telling us about this. We're going to go fix it. Here's some compensation, in exchange for finding that security issue. But what really plays into miles and points is some airlines, especially United, actually have a bug bounty that pays in miles. And so on United, I've actually earned over 5 million miles just from finding security issues in United's website and mobile app. So that's been really interesting. And it's given me a lot of miles and a lot of ways to travel, which has been really fun. So,
What are some of the examples for different bugs that you found that are fixed now so people can't just go out and like try to mess with United this way, but what are some that you were able to get a few million miles out of?
yeah. So sadly, like kind of the way it works is when you get the miles, that gives you an NDA and they say you can't talk about what you found or the specific issues. It is like the United Bug Bounty. It's mostly just the United's website and their mobile app. And so it just kind of like the booking flows, the reservation system, stuff like that is where you're allowed to look for bugs. But they don't let me share it, sadly. We have had some other bugs, like Lufthansa also has a bug bounty that I participated a little bit in. Same thing with the NDA, but a few airlines do run these programs, which is really cool.
Which other programs run these bug bounty programs in case people are like, well, I have some free time and I know about cybersecurity and I'm going to try to get myself some points. We got United, Lufthansa, what else?
Yeah, so it's kind of limited. United is the main one. They're really vocal about it. Lufthansa has a small program. The benefit of Lufthansa is United actually issues you a 1099 for taxes if you earn United miles in the bug bounty, and they do it at 2 cents per mile. So for some of you maybe doing the math there, it might not really be worth it to do the United bug bounty if you're not aware of the tax implications. But Lufthansa is German, so they don't issue a tax form, which is definitely a little bit better. And then most other airlines, sadly, don't pay anything for security issues. So they run like a vulnerability disclosure program. Like I found a lot of bugs in Delta as well because I fly Delta a lot, but they don't pay you anything. They just say, "Hey, thank you for the bug," and they'll fix it, but they won't offer you anything. Which I'll take some Delta miles eventually, maybe. But
Do hotels do this too? And like, what would somebody do with a hotel program? Because these bugs
yeah,
can be crazy, like just making up things that people could do. Like, if somebody got into the database and could just like alter flight prices, that would be crazy if you could do that. Finding people's information and birthdays and credit card info, like that's a security risk, things like that.
yeah.
With hotels, you had a story where what was it with the locks? Like, you could remote access locks? How does that work?
Yeah, yeah, we found a security issue in a series of hotel locks called. It's made by a company called Dormicava, and you've probably seen the lock before because basically every major brand uses it in some form in their hotels. Usually, companies like Marriott, they're so big they have multiple types of hotel locks in their hotels, but there are over 3 million doors using these locks in various hotels. And obviously, as someone who travels a lot, I was staying in these hotels, and I'm like, this little electronic lock is like the key to all my valuables and how do these things actually work. And so some of my friends and I worked on this, and we found a way to create a master key actually. So we could walk up to any lock in the hotel and open it with just a couple of key cards, which was really scary. And because, those locks are so widespread, it took over 2 years, I think, for them to fix them.
How? On, like, many ways, like, how did you, like, look at this lock and be like, "That's not secure"? I don't need the full technical of, like, how do you put this program together,
Sure.
but, like, how? Why? What?
Yeah. Well, what really started it was there's actually a casino in Las Vegas that started a bug bounty program. And so I got invited along with some of my friends, and they said, "Hey, we're a casino. We obviously care a lot about security and our guests. They have a lot of money in the rooms." And so the hotel locks were one of the things where they said, "We will pay you if you find a security issue in these locks." And so we actually went on eBay and bought some of the hotel locks that had just been listed, I think, by like hotels that had shut down or they didn't need them anymore. And so we just bought some of these hotel locks and we started taking them apart, seeing how it worked. And we kind of had like a mini fake hotel, like in our like apartment of like we had some door locks and we had like a front desk computer. And so now that we had, like the simulation of like a fake hotel, we could see like how does it actually work under the hood and how are the keys created. And basically we discovered that every hotel used the same encryption key. So if you went and stayed at a Marriott and then you went to a different hotel that used the same locks, like a Hyatt, they were both using the same encryption key. And so each hotel could have compromised all the other hotels because of that. So now they use a different encryption key for each hotel so that you can't steal the key and go to other hotels.
That was a much better, like, layman's explanation versus what I thought was about to happen, where I'm just like, "Oh, no, it's gonna get, like, super technical super fast," but no, that's fascinating where it's like, how many people are involved in this, like, 4 guys with an apartment where you're just like, "We're gonna build, like, a fake hotel in our apartment and see if we can break into Ian's room."
Yeah, there's some photos of me. I'll send you the slides where I was sitting with my friends on a hotel bed, and we were just like we kept tapping like the key card on the lock because we were trying to test the vulnerability, and so we were just tapping a key card like 100 times on the lock, waiting to see if it would open or close. Or it's kind of funny to see like the hotel lock removed from the door.
Yeah, that is crazy. Okay, so vulnerabilities in airlines, hotels, there was a thing with TSA too, right?
Yeah, yeah. So recently, I don't know if I'm sure you have as you go through the TSA lines, you might notice sometimes that there's a separate lane called known crew member, right? And so I assume most of your listeners probably have pre-checked, right? But very few people have known crew member, which is it's for airline pilots and flight attendants. And because they're already, flying the plane or they're trusted to be, on the crew, they get to skip security a lot of the time. And so they have a program called known crew member, which lets them do that. But of course, there has to be like a list of like who is a pilot, who is a flight attendant, right? Because they don't want me walking up to it and saying, "Hey, can I go through security?" And so my friend and I, again, we kept going through TSA, and I was like, "Man, I wonder how that system, makes sure that they are a legitimate flight attendant." And we started doing some research, and we found that there's this company that actually runs it for the airlines, and so they say, hey, if you're an airline and you want your crew to have no crew member, which they all do, right? Because it's like a company benefit of you get to skip the line, right? We found this company, we started looking at it, and we actually found a SQL injection issue in their login page. And it's actually a very, very simple type of issue. Like we just typed in a single quotation mark into the login field, and then there was an error. And that kind of just means like they're doing some really sketchy stuff that we fixed SQL injection 20 years ago. Like this isn't supposed to be an issue that happens anymore, but this critical system of who is a pilot and flight attendant had this issue. And so we were able to actually add like a pilot to the database of approved crew members with the issue, which is really scary.
Oh god, if terrorists got a hold of would be horrifying. Okay, for everybody who doesn't know what a SQL injection is, what's like the layman's explanation of what SQL injection is?
Yeah, so like when we went to the login page, basically it runs a query called a SQL query to basically check is this the right username and password? And so it goes to the SQL server and says, hey, is the right password admin and password or whatever, right? But the problem is with SQL injection, you can modify the SQL query and you can change it for is the password supposed to be password? Or you can say like, is the password supposed to be password or anything else? And then it will accept any password to log in, right? And so that's kind of the critical issue of we were able to log in without even knowing the username or password because we were able to modify the SQL query.
And then add a pilot to the database who was not a real pilot. Okay, cool. So that's fixed now, right?
Yeah.
They fixed TSA fixed that. Okay. But you don't have TSA pre-check?
I don't have pre-check. No, I actually just applied for it recently, and so I think they're not going to approve me because of that recent blog post we did. We did work with the TSA on fixing it, and they were very appreciative at first. But then we told them we were going to write up, and then they started getting really weird, and they stopped replying to us. So I think they liked that we told them about the issue, and then they didn't like that we wrote the blog post about it.
With all of the airlines still operating on stuff that's from like the 90s, how at risk is that? Or does it make it less risky because like it's lasted this long, so whatever. Like, how at risk are airlines of just like the MGM hack that happened in October? Is that gonna happen where all of our flights get just ransomed back to us?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a real concern for loyalty programs, right? Because if you think about it, loyalty programs are really just a record of everything you're doing. But to give you the points for the flight, they need to know where you've been traveling. And so if you think about like the Marriott loyalty program or the United loyalty program, that's a record of every hotel you've stayed in, every destination you visited, or every flight you've taken and the origin destination. That data, I think, is really sensitive. And that's why I like to look at some of these programs. And I think the United Bug Bounty is great because it shows that they really care about securing that data. But as you said, a lot of these airlines either don't have IT staff themselves, especially smaller airlines, or they're outsourcing it, or they don't really have a security team, right? Like some airlines might build their own website, but then they don't have a cybersecurity team defending it, and so it's definitely kind of scary from that perspective.
That would suck if like I mean, there's worse things that can happen, but if just like loyalty points were gone, if just one day I'm like, "Oh, all my Hyatt points are gone." That sucks.
Right.
Oh, my all my American Airlines miles are gone. I mean, that'd be worse if someone's like, "So we stole your identity and like all of your flight info and your passport info." That would suck more. But all of this would be really, really rough if like hackers got into this.
I agree. I value my Hyatt Suite Upgrade awards. I hope no one tries to take them from my account. I'd be very sad.
I'm really glad that IHG now has passwords instead of just the 4-digit PIN because if someone's just brute force trying stuff, there's only so many combinations of 4-digit pins that somebody could try. So, at least they have passwords now. I hear that one used to be, like, the one where you had to watch your points because if points were gonna get stolen out of somewhere, it used to be IHG just because it used to be so much easier for people to hack into it, but, ah, fun times. What are the main takeaways somebody should have where they're like, "I don't wanna get hacked. What do I do?"
Yeah, I mean, luckily, most of the issues I'm finding, like we work with the airlines to fix, and then they fix it, and no one even has to do anything, which is great. But I think the number one thing I see is like people just don't use a password manager, and they reuse passwords across a lot of websites. And I think the main issue is one website you use gets hacked, and you use the same password for your Delta account. Hackers are going to try that and try to get into your Delta account, and then they're going to book all the flights they want with your points. And sometimes you'll notice that they did it, and sometimes you won't notice. And then, hey, you go to book a flight with your hard-earned 100,000 Delta mile sign-up bonus, and the hackers took it 2 months ago. And luckily, I think most airlines are pretty good about eventually returning it due to fraud. But I've heard some airlines make it so if you get hacked, you have to call them every time you want to make a word redemption, right? And like on some airlines, that's not going to be a very pleasant experience. So I really think just using unique passwords everywhere, using a password manager is like one of the best things you can do, especially for your loyalty accounts.
For things like the hotel lock, is there what can be done?
Yeah, that one's trickier, right? Because it's on your door, and some people don't notice, but the deadbolt on most hotel locks is actually controlled by the lock as well. And so, with our vulnerability, we were able to create a key card that would actually override the deadbolt. So even if you had set the deadbolt on your door and said, like, maybe you thought, "Hey, no one can come in now," actually that deadbolt is controlled by the lock, and so some hotel staff can override it, and we could override it with our vulnerability. So you need something really physical, right? Like some people sell like door stoppers you can put under a door to try to wedge it in there, or they'll sell like I think there's like a hook or something to keep the deadbolt latched. I think both of those are good things to have if you're traveling a lot, but it's more about knowing that someone is trying to break in rather than preventing them, because eventually someone's going to kick the door down or something if they really want to get in. It's more about discovering they're trying to get in and calling the police or something like that.
Scary. Yeah, as a small woman who travels alone often. That's great. Great. Okay. So, kind of shifting gears, as you built Seats.Aero, did you just kind of do this for fun or like what was the impetus of this?
Yeah, so I mean, I was living in San Francisco, and I think I had signed up for like the CSR, and I had my first card, and I had 100,000 points or something. And I think the first redemption I really wanted to do was Lufthansa first class, right? And it was a little easier back then too, but still, it had to be booked within 14 days. And I really just every day I was like going on the Life Miles website and running the search, right? And it was like slow and it took a while. And the United website used to be a lot slower and harder to use. And I was like searching there. And I was like, there has to be a better way for me to do this, right? And that was actually part of the reason why I made Seats.Aero was I just wanted to see what Lufthansa first class was available, right? Because I could fly to Dulles or New York if I really needed to and take it from there. But to search from San Francisco, to search from New York, to search from Dulles, it's very tiring every day. And that was one of the main reasons I built it. I just wanted to fly first class. What days can I do it on? And that was our first feature, was the explore feature of you can just sort the table by like first class and see what's the cheapest first class flight I can take, what's the cheapest business class flight I can take. And we only supported one program at first. It was Life Miles, because I really liked Life Miles. They still have a fixed award chart, and I think it was only 87,000 points for first class at the time. I think sadly it went up now, which is very sad. But that was why we first started.
How come Life Miles isn't even there anymore? It's like Netflix started by mailing you physical DVDs and now they don't even do that. Why is Life Miles not part of Seats.Aero?
Yeah, it's really sad. I'm actually not sure what happened either. We supported Life Miles for over a year, and I actually ended up finding some security issues in Life Miles, and I reported it to them. And they fixed the security issues, but then they banned my frequent flyer account, and I couldn't use Life Miles anymore. And then that was around the time they blocked Seats.Aero as well. And so I think maybe they thought I was like a malicious hacker. I'm a very nice hacker. Like I told them about the issue. I was hoping they would fix it, but I think maybe it came across as we were trying to hack them or something. And so they changed it so you can't search without logging in. They used to let you search without logging in. And so that's what we were doing. And then they changed it so that basically we couldn't search it anymore. And so that was why we had to remove Life Miles, which was sad. But luckily at that point, we'd added more programs. So it wasn't the end of the world.
For the ones that require logins like Singapore, ANA, Cathay, is that why those don't show up on Seats.Aero?
Yeah, it's much harder for us to search programs where you have to log in, because I think most airlines don't really want to prevent us from searching on Seats.Aero because they want their award availability to be shared. If you see one account is running like 100,000 searches, the airline IT people are probably like, what the hell is this one account doing? And I think it looks suspicious, and the account will just get banned by automated systems and stuff like that. And so also the legal issues as well, like the terms of service, like some airlines have terms that say you can't scrape if you create an account. And so we can't create an account on those airlines because we would be agreeing to terms that we would be violating. So that's also another reason why we don't do it.
Yeah, the Avios programs also require you to log in, but some of these, like Air France, I think requires me to log in, and Virgin Atlantic requires me to log in, but those are supported by Seats.Aero. How come those will work, but others won't?
Yeah, Air France actually had a way to search without logging in until fairly recently. And that's why we've been having some trouble with Air France on Seats to Aero, because There used to be a way where you could visit a URL and you could run a search without logging in on Air France, but unfortunately they removed that in the past month, and that's been kind of what's been causing us to go up and down on Air France. It's just tricky. The Air France terms don't prevent scraping, so we're still trying to show their flights, and they have great 50K saver redemptions, and it was even better when they had the 13K redemptions. I don't think they intended to offer those, fortunately, but
What are the programs where you're like, "We could just get these added, that would be fantastic," but for various technical reasons, they just haven't been added in?
yeah, I think British Airways, as you mentioned, would be great to add. We get a lot of requests for that. Asia Miles would be another one. Like Cathay Pacific really limits this cost availability now. When we started, it didn't, and it was easy to find it via American Airlines, but now it's really just via Asia Miles. So that's another program I wish we had, and Singapore as well. It's actually pretty good via Aeroplan. Like sometimes you'll see more seats on Aeroplan than you even will via Chris Flyers. So for the most part, Aeroplan works pretty well, but to get the first class suites, you need to book Singapore itself, and that's another program I wish we could add. And if anyone from Singapore is watching, they can contact me. We can get you into Seats.Aero.
What are some of the features of Seats.Aero that you think are really underutilized? Because I use this all the time. A lot of people who watch my YouTube channel watch or use Seats.Aero all the time. But what are some things where you're just like, guys, this exists, but no one uses it enough?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think our multi-city codes. A lot of people don't realize how many we have, or to the extent of them. Like we have a multi-city code for just the major airports in the U.S., and you can just type one airport code, and we'll search all of them at once for you. So I think that's a really powerful feature. We have like a Japan code, and it'll search all the major airports in Japan, and that really cuts down on like making really big searches, right? Of if you just want to see everything from the U.S. to Japan, you can just use our multi-city codes and get a bunch of airports at once. And we're actually working on adding a way so you can add your own multi-city codes as well. Like if you want to have an airport code just for like Julia's most common airports, right? You can add that and then it'll be saved in your account to run. So I think that's a really cool feature that a lot of people miss on Seats.Aero.
I think so too. So that's on the search tab where you can type in like WST and it'll show all of the West Coast airports or EST for East Coast, MIW for Midwest, MEA for Middle East, and like ASA for Asia. There's like all of these where a lot of times when we have clients who are like, I need to get to Thailand. And this month, I'm like, well, there's nothing direct from the US to Thailand, but let's just try to get you over the ocean in Asia because that's how I recommend usually doing these searches anyway, is just get yourself over the ocean and we're good to go there.
For
So
sure.
you mentioned sometimes airlines are like okay with the award space being shown, sometimes they're not. There was that whole thing with Air Canada being, I'm going to say upset, and that's going to be the understatement of this hour. Okay, so Air Canada got upset. Why were they upset?
Yeah, I wish I really knew the true reason. I think kind of what we talked about earlier is a lot of these airlines run on legacy technology stacks. And so sometimes they'll see, like, hey, like this person's doing a lot of award searches. Can our system from the 1980s handle that? We've really tried to build our system in a way where it doesn't impact the airlines. Like we have very strict rate limiting and throttling. And so we make sure, hey, even if you run like a really big search, like it's not going to take down any airline system. Unfortunately, it seems like Air Canada still had some kind of problem with it. And we did win in court recently, which has been great, really to show that a lot of these airlines were just showing what's on their public website, and so we did win the injunction case against us. The overall case is still ongoing, which I'm hopeful will resolve eventually. But for now, we still support Air Canada, which is great.
Yeah, I'm so glad that Air Canada is still there because I'm like, okay, well, Air Canada, if you could just make an award calendar on your website, like, I guess there'd be a way to get around this. Like, if for some reason American Airlines was like, Seats.io, you can't search anymore, that'd be a little bit of a bummer because you can't search lots of cities at the same time, but you could still search a lot of dates at the same time. If I'm like, all right, everything from Dallas to Helsinki throughout the whole year, it's still doable on American Airlines. Air Canada, not so much.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate. I think it's mostly because we're a small team. Like we're only two people, my wife and I, and so I think to some airlines maybe again they think like, hey, is this guy like actually trying to help us, or is Seats.Aero kind of like a malicious entity? And I'd love to talk to any of them to say otherwise, but Air Canada kind of just sued us out of nowhere, so that was a little unfortunate.
It's just 2 people on your team. I think a lot of people assume, like, there's a tech team behind Seats.Aero, but it's just you and your wife answers customer service emails.
Yeah, yeah, I built the whole website. I'm responsible for most of the tech problems. If there's a bug or an issue, it's my fault usually. So feel free to let me know, and I can get it fixed. But yeah, very small.
You have a bug bounty program?
I think we need to add one because a few people have been asking me now. I've been talking about our bug bounty stuff. You get free Seats.Aero Pro if you find a security issue. And we do have a security email, so feel free to let us know if you find any security issues. I wish we could pay you airline miles or something, but it's a little tricky to do that.
I think a lot of people also don't know about Rooms.Aero. If they know about Seats.Aero, where you can find flight stuff, tell us a little bit about Rooms.Aero, which we featured on the channel, but less than Seats.Aero.
Yeah, a lot of people really just came to us and said they really like the format of Seats.Aero. They like the ability to do really broad searches. And the same problem for some competitive award routes. Like if you want to go New York to Tokyo, it's really hard to find awards. The same problem happens at some of these properties, especially Hyatt's, where it's like Big Sur. There's like only so many rooms in this property and everyone wants one. And so we do the same thing as Seats.Aero, where we let you see the whole year on a big table and you can kind of sort through what is available, what's a good price. I know a lot of people use our Marriott certificate finder as well, where you can say, hey, if I've got a 35K certificate, what can I actually redeem for that? And what can I top up for that? So really just trying to take the same philosophy as Seats.Aero and apply it to the major hotel brands.
Is there a pro version of Rooms.Aero? What do you get
Yeah,
for it?
it's just included with Seats.Aero. Yeah, because it is a smaller set of features compared to Seats.Aero. And so we don't charge anything extra for it because I think it just goes hand in hand with Seats.Aero. So it's already included in the pro version of Seats.Aero.
I think another feature that a lot of people don't know about is the Discord that you run for people who use Seats.Aero. Can you talk a little bit about the Discord?
Yeah, the Discord is great. It's grown quite a lot. I really just started it as a way of if you have problems with Seats.Aero or feedback to share it. But then it grew quite a lot, just like the site. And I think we have 8,300 members now in our Discord, which is awesome. And it's really just a lot of discussion around airlines and redemptions and credit cards and stuff like that. And so you can come in and ask for advice, or we have a questions channel and a credit cards channel. And yeah, it's just a really great organic community.
How big is the Seats.Aero community? Because that Discord is not everybody.
We're almost at 400,000 monthly users, I think, for Seats.Aero, like the free version. And the paid version, we're at over 40,000 users now. So it's really grown quite a lot. And I think maybe the site looks a little simple, and some people think, hey, this is just like a small award travel search site. But we've actually grown quite a lot, which has been really awesome to see.
Yeah, and I like simple sites because they scale better. If it's too fancy, then I don't want a slow site because there's pretty graphics on. I'm like, I just need to search. I just need to it's a fast site. And again, it's one of my favorites. It works super well and it's scaled up quite a bit. Has there been any problems with like as this has grown pretty exponentially in the past? How many years? How old is Seats.Aero?
A bit over 2 years now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
400,000 people in 2 years. That's huge. Have there been problems with scaling or you're like, "Nah, I'm good at coding"?
Yeah, I think we do struggle with customer support is a bit of a problem. As I said, it's mostly my wife answering the tickets, and we try our best, but because there are just like so many users at this point, it is hard for us to like answer these tickets like quickly and comprehensively. I used to do it myself. I answered every support ticket, and it was really great to get like the direct feedback and hear problems, and I was able to fix bugs really quickly. But then it came to the point where I wasn't actually working on the website; I was just answering customer support tickets, and I was like, well, I have to keep building the website and keep adding features. So now my wife does customer support and I still answer some tickets, but that's been like the biggest scaling challenge, I think, along with just the sheer amount of data. Like we have over a billion historical records of like what has been available in the past, and we keep that for some of our features. Just managing that and allowing 400,000 users to search it every month has been a bit of a challenge on the technical side for sure.
With all the cache data, how do you decide, like, when to let go of stuff? Because obviously, like, award space goes stale and people just get upset after a while if you're like, "We found this thing 2 days ago," and they're like, "Ian, I'm mad because it's not there anymore and you got my hopes up." Like, how do you know when to be like, "Okay, we're not gonna show this anymore, it's gone."
Yeah, we really try to show as much as possible and just be transparent about when we saw it, right? Like it's always in the table of how many hours ago or how many days ago did we see this? And I think that's like the best approach of you can say, hey, maybe this route is small and we don't update it very often. It probably doesn't change that often because it's a small route and doesn't change that often. We do some things like if there's an outage for the mileage program and it's older than I think 2 weeks, then we start to hide it in some places because there's no real reason to show you data that's like several weeks old at that point. But we also really try to refresh it as soon as you view it. So if you're a pro user and you click on the info button and explore, or if you run a search that's small enough to refresh, we'll try to update that live as you're looking at it and make sure it's still valid and still bookable.
So you do this like full time. Do you still do bug bounty stuff and other cyber consulting on the side, or it's just like 24/7 Seats.Aero at this point?
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely full time on Seats.Aero. I do some bug bounty programs when I have free time, and it's definitely still like a hobby of mine. I was doing it for so long before Seats.Aero, so it's hard to let go of doing cybersecurity. And I go to some conferences every year and stuff like that. But I do work quite a lot on Seats.Aero, and it doesn't leave a ton of free time for sure. So,
We all appreciate you building this because it's a favorite amongst the points community. As you've kind of built this and everything that you've learned about points and miles and the security risks within the loyalty programs and everything, what would you say is your number one tip for everybody who is looking to level up their points even more?
yeah, I think really it comes down to just staying on top of like the latest news and updates to programs and stuff like that. Like a lot of the times you'll see like airlines launch new routes and then immediately there's like a dump of award availability on that route. And hey, maybe there's a new credit card and it has a good sign up bonus initially and stuff like that. I really see if you spend a lot of time reading the news and keeping up to date with the space, I think you'll see a lot of opportunities. And I think a lot of people who just get started maybe get overwhelmed at first, which totally makes sense. And I had the same problem, right? It's like, wow, there's so much information. But after a while, you get used to it and you have an idea of like, okay, I know my transfer partners, I know the routes that are already there. Let me start reading and looking for updates on what I already know.
What are your favorite news sites for keeping up with points news and different drops in award space or changes to charts and devaluations? Where do you go for that info?
Yeah, I really love Frequent Miler. I think that's my favorite blog, and they talk about Seats.Aero as well, which is why I appreciate them because when we were new, it was hard to get some traction in the blogs. And Frequent Miler was great about it and wrote about us pretty early, so I appreciate them for that. But they also just have so many articles about so many useful topics on points, and even just comparing like the word search tools, right? Like if you want to see how does Seats.Aero stack up with other tools, they write honest takes on like where are we short and where are other tools better. So I think that's really valuable.
Very cool. If people want to find you and ask questions, or if they just want to try out Seats.Aero, where should people go?
Yeah, well, I'm always at Ian at Seats.Aero if you want to email me. If you have a problem, it's probably, again, probably caused by me. So feel free to email me and I read every email. And I think that's probably the best answer. But you could always try out Seats.Aero. One of the things I'm proud about is you don't have to register for a free account. You can just go and do whatever searches you want within the free version and just try it out. So I always encourage people, especially if they're thinking about signing up, just go run some searches on the free version and see what do you think about it and does it meet what you need.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much again, Ian, for coming onto the show today. Loved having you on here and getting to talk about all of the different cybersecurity issues that we've seen and how a lot of it is manifested into one of our favorite tools in the community, which is Seats.Aero. So thank you again so much for joining us on the show today and for building this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.